Have you ever judged someone only to discover how completely wrong you were? This story might just change how you see strangers forever. If this resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to see more life-changing stories that remind us of our shared humanity. Eliza Morgan drummed her manicured nails against the countertop of Sunrise Cafe, her patience wearing thinner with each passing second. The morning rush had transformed the usually peaceful coffee shop into a chaotic battlefield of caffeine-deprived customers. At the front of the line stood a disheveled man in his mid-30s, his wrinkled button-up shirt partially untucked, with a small girl, perhaps 5 or 6 years old, clutching his hand. "Otosan, can I have the strawberry cake?" the little girl asked, tugging at his sleeve. The man knelt down, his tired eyes softening as he looked at his daughter. "Aiko, we talked about this. It's too early for cake." Eliza checked her watch again. 10 minutes had passed since she'd joined the line, and she was already running late for her presentation. As a marketing executive at one of downtown's most prestigious firms, tardiness was unacceptable. She had spent weeks preparing for this pitch, and now this indecisive man and his child were jeopardizing everything. "For God's sake," she muttered under her breath, loud enough for nearby customers to hear. "Some people shouldn't bring their kids to places like this if they can't control them." The father glanced back briefly, his expression unreadable, before turning his attention back to the menu board. The little girl, however, looked directly at Eliza, her dark eyes wide and hurt. "I'll have a medium black coffee and a small hot chocolate, please. And a banana," the man finally said to the barista. "That's it? You spent all that time to order the simplest things on the menu?" Eliza couldn't contain herself anymore. "Some of us have actual jobs to get to." The cafe fell silent. Even the baristas paused their movements, uncomfortable tension filling the air. The man turned around fully this time, his daughter half hiding behind his legs. "Suma Mason," he said quietly. "Isogashi tokuro o oisoges shite shermat mashiwe karimasen." Then, switching to perfect English with just a hint of an accent, he continued, "I apologize for delaying you. My daughter lost her mother 3 months ago, and mornings are still difficult for us." Eliza felt the blood drain from her face. The cafe seemed to spin around her as the weight of her cruelty crashed down on her shoulders. I didn't." She stammered, but the man had already paid and moved to the waiting area, lifting his daughter and whispering something in her ear that made her smile faintly. The barista behind the counter gave Eliza a disapproving look. "What can I get for you today?" she asked, her tone noticeably cooler than when she'd served the father. Eliza couldn't focus during her presentation. Her words felt hollow as she moved through her carefully prepared slides. All she could see was the hurt in that little girl's eyes and the dignified restraint of her father. She had judged them so harshly, so quickly, without knowing anything about their story. When the meeting ended, her boss, Marcus, pulled her aside. "Everything okay, Eliza? You seem distracted in there." "I'm fine," she lied. "Just a rough morning." As she walked back to her office, Eliza found herself taking a detour through the city park. She needed air, space to think. The encounter at the cafe had shaken something loose inside her, a realization about the person she had become. When had she started seeing other people as obstacles rather than human beings with their own struggles? When had efficiency become more important than empathy? She sat on a bench, watching children play on the nearby playground. A familiar figure caught her eye, the man from the cafe, sitting on another bench while his daughter climbed on the jungle gym. He was watching her with such attentiveness, such love, that Eliza felt a lump form in her throat. Before she could talk herself out of it, Eliza stood up and walked over to him. "Excuse me," she said softly. He looked up, recognition dawning in his eyes. "I wanted to apologize for my behavior this morning," she continued. "It was inexcusable." The man studied her for a moment before gesturing to the empty space beside him. "Please, sit." Eliza hesitated, then sat down, maintaining a respectful distance. "My name is Eliza," she offered. "Takashi," he replied. "And that's Aiko." He nodded toward his daughter, who was carefully making her way across the monkey bars. "She's beautiful," Eliza said sincerely. "Thank you. She looks like her mother." A shadow passed over his face. "I'm truly sorry about your loss," Eliza said. "And I'm sorry I added difficulty to what must already be an incredibly challenging time." Takashi nodded, his gaze returning to his daughter. "Grief is not linear. Some days are better than others. Today was hard because it's her mother's birthday." Eliza felt her heart constrict. "And I made it worse." "We all have moments we're not proud of," Takashi said. "What matters is what we learn from them." Over the next few weeks, Eliza found herself returning to the park during lunch breaks. Sometimes she would see Takashi and Aiko, sometimes not. When their paths did cross, they would exchange pleasantries that gradually evolved into genuine conversations. She learned that Takashi was a translator who had met his late wife, Emily, while studying abroad in America. They had settled in the city when Emily became pregnant with Aiko, building a life that bridged their two cultures. After Emily's sudden death from an aneurysm, Takashi had been struggling to maintain that bridge for Aiko's sake. "I want her to know both sides of her heritage," he explained one day as they watched Aiko play with another child. "But sometimes I worry I'm not enough." "From what I've seen, you're doing an amazing job," Eliza assured him. "She's kind, resilient, and clearly adores you." Takashi smiled, a rare full smile that transformed his face. "Thank you for saying that." As spring turned to summer, Eliza found herself increasingly invested in Takashi and Aiko's lives. She introduced them to her favorite bookstore, which had an excellent children's section. Takashi showed her a Japanese market where they bought ingredients to make onigiri, rice balls that became Eliza's new favorite lunch. One evening, after Aiko had fallen asleep on Takashi's couch during a movie night, Eliza helped him tidy up the kitchen. "You know," he said quietly, that morning at the cafe, "I was having the worst day since Emily died. Aiko had cried all night for her mother, and I felt completely helpless." Eliza paused, a dish towel in her hands. "I can't imagine how difficult that must have been. When you said what you did, my first instinct was anger," he admitted. "But then I remembered something my grandmother used to say, the person who hurts others is often hurting themselves." Eliza looked down, ashamed. "I was stressed about work, but that's no excuse." "No, but it's a reason," Takashi said gently. "We all carry burdens others can't see." "How did you become so wise?" Eliza asked, only half joking. Takashi laughed softly. "I'm not wise. I'm just trying to be the kind of person I want Aiko to become." Autumn arrived with crisp air and falling leaves. Eliza had undergone a transformation that her colleagues noticed but couldn't quite name. She was still efficient, still driven, but there was a new softness to her approach, a willingness to listen that made her team more loyal than ever. One Saturday, she helped Takashi organize a small birthday party for Aiko at the Children's Museum. As they watched Aiko blow out her candles, surrounded by new friends from her kindergarten class, Takashi reached for Eliza's hand. "Thank you," he said simply. "For what?" she asked. "For seeing us," he replied. "Really seeing us." Later that night, after Aiko had fallen asleep amid a pile of new toys, Takashi and Eliza sat on his balcony, sharing a bottle of sake. "I've been thinking about that morning at the cafe," Eliza said. "How different my life would be if you had responded with anger instead of grace." Takashi considered this. "My mother always told me that how we respond to others shapes not just their day, but potentially their life." "Your mother was right," Eliza said. "You changed my life with a few words in Japanese." "What did I say again?" Takashi asked, a small smile playing at his lips. "I have no idea," Eliza laughed. But it was the kindness behind them that mattered. Takashi's expression grew serious. I said, I'm sorry for making you rush during your busy time. Simple, really. But it wasn't simple at all, was it? Eliza said softly. It was a choice to respond with dignity when I had shown none. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the city lights twinkle against the darkening sky. Emily would have liked you, Takashi said suddenly. She believed strongly in second chances. Eliza felt tears prick at her eyes. I wish I could have known her. In a way, you do, Takashi said. She lives on in Aiko. And in the way I try to live my life. Winter brought snow and holiday preparations. Eliza found herself spending most weekends with Takashi and Aiko, helping decorate their apartment with a blend of Western Christmas traditions and Japanese New Year customs. On Christmas Eve, after they had placed presents under the tree and filled Aiko's stocking, Takashi handed Eliza a small, carefully wrapped package. What's this? She asked, surprised. Open it, he encouraged. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a coffee cup. To remember where our story began, Takashi explained. Eliza laughed through sudden tears. Not my finest moment. But an important one, Takashi said, taking her hand. Eliza, before you came into our lives, I was just surviving each day. You helped me remember how to live again. You did the same for me, she whispered. I was so caught up in my career, in appearing successful, that I'd forgotten what really matters. Takashi leaned forward, his forehead touching hers. Which is? Connection, Eliza said. Compassion. The courage to be vulnerable. He nodded, his eyes reflecting the twinkling lights of the Christmas tree. Aiko asked me something interesting yesterday. What was that? She asked if you were going to be her new mother. Takashi watched Eliza carefully. I told her that wasn't something I could decide alone. Eliza's heart raced. What did she say to that? She said, and I quote, well, ask her then, Otosan. Don't be scared. They both laughed, the sound mingling with the soft Christmas music playing in the background. I'm not asking that question. Not yet, Takashi clarified. But I am asking if you're willing to see where this journey takes us. Eliza thought about the woman she had been that morning in the cafe, impatient, judgmental, closed off. And she thought about the woman she was becoming, someone who could love deeply, forgive readily, and find joy in the simple moments of connection. Yes, she said, her voice steady and sure. I'm all in. Spring returned, and with it, the anniversary of Emily's death. Eliza accompanied Takashi and Aiko to the cemetery, standing back respectfully as they placed fresh flowers on the grave. Mama, I brought someone special to meet you, Aiko said to the headstone. This is Eliza. She makes Otosan smile again. Takashi knelt beside his daughter, adding something in Japanese that Eliza couldn't understand. When they returned to where she waited, Aiko took her hand. What did you tell your mother? Eliza asked Takashi softly. I told her that you taught me that love isn't a limited resource, that opening our hearts again doesn't diminish what we had before. As they walked back through the cemetery, Aiko skipping ahead to chase a butterfly, Eliza reflected on the extraordinary chain of events that had brought them together. One moment of rudeness, one moment of grace, and everything had changed. What are you thinking about? Takashi asked, noticing her contemplative expression. I'm thinking about how easy it is to judge people based on a single interaction, she replied. How we never really know what someone else is going through. Takashi nodded. That's true. But I'm also thinking about how a single interaction can be the beginning of something beautiful, if we're brave enough to see it through. Aiko ran back to them, her small face flushed with excitement. Look what I found. She held up a perfect cherry blossom that had fallen from a nearby tree. It's beautiful, Eliza said, bending down to admire it. "It's for you," Aiko said, placing it in Eliza's palm with solemn ceremony. As Eliza carefully tucked the blossom into her pocket, she caught Takashi watching them, his eyes filled with a mixture of love and wonder. In that moment, she understood that sometimes life's greatest gifts come disguised as its greatest challenges. The woman who had once mocked a struggling single dad in a coffee shop was gone, transformed by the very grace she had failed to show. In her place stood someone new, someone who understood that every interaction, no matter how brief, carries the potential to change a life forever. And as they walked hand in hand toward whatever the future held, Eliza silently thanked that impatient, judgmental version of herself. Without her worst moment, she would never have found her way to her best life. If this story touched your heart, please remember to like and subscribe. Sometimes the most powerful changes begin with a single moment of understanding, just like Eliza's journey from judgment to love. Share this with someone who might need a reminder that second chances and new beginnings are always possible, no matter how unlikely they might seem.